Hey everyone, Game Ecology Corner here. Today, I have for you the in-depth ecology of the Great Jagras. I wanted to specifically start out with the form to function of the Great Jagras. It is very similar to a real-world iguana in form. They have stocky, thicker limbs and a broad, lengthy tail. They have large claws and spines that cover the length of their back up to their snout, along with some spikes that run across the back to the side of the forelimbs past the elbows, but end before the wrists. They also have a spiny beard underneath their chin and around their neck, similar to a dewlap, which is a flap of skin under a lot of lizards' necks that are used for mating and intimidation, of which I'll touch on later. The Great Jagras also has a mane that goes from the nape of its neck to the mid of its back, and this is all likely made from the same or similar material as the spines that run along its back and forelimbs. It is also good at climbing and leaping short to medium distances, as it is surprisingly flexible and muscular. As a lizard, it is also most likely has similar physiology in terms of being cold-blooded, where they're more active in daytime hours and less active in nighttime hours. The Great Jagras also has large visible ear holes along with great ocular abilities, and with large dark patches around its eyes to prevent the sun from blinding it. However, its strongest sense is more than likely their sense of smell, as they are seen sampling the air around them. More on that in coming segments. They also sport a mouth full of sharp canines which indicate them being highly carnivorous, with a split jaw like a snake. Their skin is covered in scales and shows to be leather-like, but is surprisingly very stretchable and pliable, much like a snake's is. They also have striped patterns of black and yellow across their body, which in a real-world application makes it far easier for the animal to hide from predator or prey alike, as it breaks up their silhouette in the foliage. All of this is to just kind of give a background to the behaviors and the physiology, of which I will now cover. The Great Jagras is the embodiment of gluttony in the New World, but not necessarily because it wants to. The Great Jagras has one of the fastest, if not the fastest metabolism and digestion cycle of every animal in the New World, including Deviljho. At least 3 times during the daylight cycle of the game does the Great Jagras need to hunt and eat, which is the far opposite of what real-world animals that eat the size of prey the Great Jagras does. Snakes specifically we can look at for examples, as a large meal relative to their size can take months before the snake is hungry again and seeks out more food. A good example of this was just a large anaconda eating a wild boar. However, when the Great Jagras becomes hungry, it begins to salivate to the point of dripping out of its mouth, and after sampling the air, it locks onto a target, which are usually aptonoths, and attacks it with surprising speed from the tree line or from some large bushes. The sense of smell is very powerful and most likely has a specialized organ, much like most carnivorous lizards, that uses chemosensory in the real world. That organ is called the vomeronasal or Jacobson's organ. This organ is used for chemosensory. They pull chemicals from the air, usually with a flick of the tongue, and then put that on the roof of their mouth where the organ is located, and it sends chemical signals to the brain. But this can also be used for mating and other behaviors, of which I will, again, cover later. And this allows the Jagras to not only smell normal basic smells, but to also smell specific chemicals produced by prey. After killing its prey, it begins to swallow it whole by unhinging its lower jaw and quickly works the first half in before tilting fully upwards to allow gravity to pull the rest of the prey into its stomach. Then heads back to its den to mark territory for it and its normal Jagras counterparts by regurgitating a hunk of meat and bone. It is unknown if this is stored elsewhere. But with how quickly it digests prey, it can be safe to assume that the tougher pieces remain for a slightly longer time. Once it reaches the innermost parts of its den and then expels excess air and fluids from its body, the prey item has been fully digested at that point. The entire digestion process is still unknown, but can be speculated as to what may cause such rapidness in the process. 1. The acids in the stomach are hundreds of times stronger than other monsters in the verse, as well as the most powerful stomach acids in the real world. 2. There are specialized enzymes and highly sophisticated processes that break down proteins and lipids in the saliva and the inner stomach lining that dissolve the flesh on contact. Or 3. A mixture of both. These enzymes and processes can be similarly related to snakes and how quickly they break down a meal before storing their energy, because a meal of that size, if broken down really slowly, can rot and then infect the snake and kill the snake. So they have to have special processes to break down that large meal. However, the great Jagras cannot store the energy like a snake or other lizards from the real world, as there's nothing left of the prey. It's just gone. There's no added size or anything from the great Jagras as soon as it expels. This leads to the insane metabolism of the great Jagras, and why the monster may need to hunt such large prey, and why it must hunt so often. A possible explanation is a mutation from the average Jagras, whose metabolism mutated out of control, where it must eat constantly or starve very quickly. With this increase in metabolism, it also gains size and voracity, which lead it to turn into the great Jagras. Now, we'll cover its defensive and territorial behaviors. The great Jagras has several defensive behaviors it uses to defend itself, its eggs, and its territory. As mentioned previously, the great Jagras marks its territory by regurgitating a large ball of meat and bones. This most likely leaves a horrible scent, along with warning to other smaller monsters that the great Jagras would consider prey. Any monster that comes through that area that is larger, a predator of the great Jagras, is swarmed and roared at, but not attacked, as the great Jagras prefers to flee most encounters with other monsters larger than it. This monster also shows great burst movement when it does decide to flee. However, when the great Jagras is cornered, does decide to fight over flee, then it will fight for its life, as a lot of animals when cornered tend to do. While observing, I did notice that the great Jagras attacked a kuluyaku when it was attempting to steal its eggs. These attacks included biting, body slamming, and clawing at the kuluyaku. This is definitely a defensive behavior and shows that the great Jagras does care about the packed young. There are several other turf wars the Jagras has with other monsters, but the most prevalent is between the Jagras and the Anjanath. Oftentimes, after sampling the air for a moment, along with the use of its specialized organ, Jacobson's organ, to know where the Anjanath is exactly, the great Jagras rushes headlong into the Anjanath to begin the turf war, of which the Jagras always loses, as the Anjanath is far larger, more powerful, and throws the Jagras around like it's a chew toy. Outside of its territory, the great Jagras is actually very passive until hungry. Hunters, along with some other more passive monsters, can share a space with the great Jagras, where hunters can even follow them and be in eyesight without a ghillie mantle. Now I will cover a more mature topic. As the game is rated for more younger audiences, there really isn't behavior or much of the way of how the monsters would actually mate in this universe. However, I will do my best to try and give one with some real-world examples. With such similarities in body plan with an iguana and the actual physical characteristics of the great Jagras, I'd begin to imagine a mating behavior and strategy similar to the anole lizards. This includes territorial displays with a dewlap, again, that flap of skin under their chin that they can flex to show off some vibrant colors as a territorial or mating behavior. Usually, or at least I would imagine, the great Jagras would have a bright red to orange, to maybe even possibly a green dewlap. This could show dominance or age to females of the species, along with other competing males to ward them away. If another male or female cannot be seen to display its dewlap too, the Jagras may find a willing mate or contender with the vomeronasal or Jacobson's organ by sampling the air and sending those chemical signals to its brain, where it will locate them and display the dewlap there. There may be some physical dispute if the dewlap display does not ward off contenders. This would also be the case for the lesser normal Jagras, and make more sense as they are able to climb the trees of the ancient forest, relating back to my anole lizard example. But that's all for mating behaviors. I do want to quickly touch on pack behavior, specifically that the great Jagras is not really the lead of the pack, but more of an outlier due to its mutation in size and hunger. I say this because when hunting a great Jagras and it is knocked over or knocked prone by either the hunter or an Anjanath or another larger monster, nearby Jagras will attack the flailing great Jagras. With this being unseen in other pack wyverns, it's safe to assume that if given the chance, normal Jagras would kill, or more than likely scavenge, from a turf war, and eat the great to sustain themselves for roughly a week, depending on the pack size and the great Jagras size. In conclusion overall, I would say that the great Jagras is an interesting mix of elements and real-world animals in their physiologies, with many questions to its size and hunger. From a basic iguana-like form to snake physiology in its jaw and saliva or stomach lining, along with behaviors from other lizards in terms of mating and defense. There wouldn't really be a real-world equivalent for this monster, except for those mentioned when mushed together. But if I had to give an equivalent, which I did promise you I would do, I'm going to stick with the iguana. Specifically, the popular pet, the green iguana, as the Jagras and its great draws the most inspiration from this popular pet. I hope I was able to give some decent explanation, some ecological stuff and physiology stuff about the great Jagras. I hope this in-depth sates any curiosity on what it may be, what this ecology may be. I appreciate you all coming. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and leave a like. Go ahead and subscribe. I'll probably be posting some more gameplay of my purist Charge Blade run. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you all next time. Game Ecology Corner, out.